In this lesson, we're going to look at the biological macromolecules, the properties, structures, and functions of our 4 different macromolecules that we've learned about. The first one we're going to talk about is carbohydrates. Carbohydrates include sugars and polymers of sugars. It contains 1 carboxyl group and many hydroxyl groups. So there's a lot of OH and 1 COH. It's comprised of only carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, which we looked at from our foldable. And then we have monosaccharide. If we think about the prefix, mono means 1, saccharide means sugars or carbohydrates, so that is 1 sugar or simple sugar. The molecular formula with multiples of C, 1 carbon, 2 hydrogen, and 1 oxygen. So if I ask, and I tell you a component has, or a carbohydrate has 1 or 2 carbons, how many hydrogens and how many oxygens would we have? We would have 4 hydrogens and 2 oxygens. The most common monosaccharide is glucose, right? We use that to make fuel for our cells. It is very important that we note that carbohydrates are fast fuel for our body. It is used in cellular respiration, which we will not talk about today, and we'll revisit this back in Unit 3. And it can serve as building blocks for amino acids or as monomers for di and polysaccharides, so for larger sugars. So, disaccharides are 2 monosaccharides joined together by covalent bonds due to a dehydration synthesis. The most common that we learn or we see and we use is sucrose or table sugar, and this is what makes your sweet tea sweet. So if you go to a restaurant and you ask for sweet tea and they tell you that there is no sweet tea, what's going to be on that table to make your sweet tea sweet is going to be table sugar, which is a glucose and a fructose joined together by a dehydration synthesis. And then plants also transfer carbohydrates from roots to the leaves in the form of sucrose. And sucrose is super important because without it, cells would not be able to get energy to make ATP or anything else that our body needs. Polysaccharides are polymers with many sugars joined via a dehydration reaction. So we can see storage of polysaccharides. Plants store starch, which is a polymer of glucose monomers. So a bunch of glucose monomers joined together. Most people's favorite food is potatoes, and potatoes have a lot of starch in them. That's what makes them crispy when we make French fries. So this allows plants to store extra glucose in case of emergency. And then animals store it in glycogen, which is once again a polymer of glucose, and this is stored in the liver and muscle cells for quick access to that fuel in case we run out. So structural polysaccharides, right? So these are things that we aren't using for storage or food, but they are structural. We can see cellulose, which is a tough substance that forms plant walls. And then we can also see chitin, which forms the exoskeleton of arthropods. So if you ever go and step on a cockroach and you hear that crunch, that is the exoskeleton of an arthropod or insect. Right, so that right there is the chitinous shell, and then it has it on there. So let's look at some practice. You are given an unknown monosaccharide to identify in lab. The only clue you're given is that it has 4 carbons. You, being an excellent biology student, figure out the formula. What is the unknown saccharide? I don't want you to know what the monosaccharide is. I want you to tell me how many hydrogens and how many oxygens you have. Right, C4H8O4. or thyrose?